What's up, everybody? Matt from the Jam Gamecast here, coming to you tonight with an impressions video. And tonight's impressions video is going to be on a PlayStation Vita game, and that is Conception 2. Now, if you watched my top 5 least favorite JRPGs video, this game was on the list. So as you can tell, I didn't really like this game a whole lot. Basically, I'll jump in first. I'll kind of go over a summary of the game. If you never played the game, this video is going to include some spoilers. So if you didn't play the game, might want to play the game first, come back and check out the video. So you play the main character, which is this kid right here. People call him God's Gift, or some people call him GG. Basically, in this world, on your 16th birthday, you might obtain certain powers. It only happens to certain kids throughout the world. And basically, any of these kids who gain this power are sent to this academy where they're trained how to fight and battle this negative energy that's in the world. And basically what happens is these, and for lack of a better term, it's basically these like dust clouds pop up throughout the world of this negative energy, and then the students from the school are sent into the dungeon essentially, and you have to basically clear out the monsters. The main character is sent to the school. He makes friends with a bunch of girls that are in his class, and essentially you're throughout the game you're developing relationships with these girls, and ultimately at the end of the game there's going to be this festival, and basically at the end you have to choose which classmate you want to take to the festival. So I'm going to dive right into it. To start out, there's one of the main things I wanted to talk about. There's no overworld in the game. It's just basically a map of the academy, and you choose different locations where you want to go at the academy, and then wherever you choose, a scene will play out with one of your classmates. There's also a school store you can go to where you buy supplies. There's a training facility where you can go and train. You can choose one of the dust clouds, which is basically the dungeons in the game, so you can choose to go to one of the dungeons and clear out the dungeon. Every time you clear out one of the dungeons, the story progresses. But there's no overworld. I would have thought it would have been pretty cool to be able to see yourself on the screen and run around the campus of the school, run around the school and everything, but it's just, the game's just not built like that. So that's one of the things I didn't really like. It's just kind of, the overworld, and you have a little, icon where you move along the map and you choose where you want to go. Another thing I didn't like about the game is the scenes repeat sometimes, and to me there was no rhyme or reason to why they repeated. It was just kind of random. At least I thought that they were random. The scenes would repeat, or conversations that you already had with one of your classmates might repeat. So that didn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. Another thing I wanted to talk about was that fact that the gameplay is sort of repetitive. Basically, you go to a dungeon, clear out all the monsters, go back to the school. You get to basically choose 3 scenes you want to see with different classmates, and basically when you choose a scene with a certain classmate, your relationship with that classmate progresses, and each female classmate in the story, each time you choose a scene or a choice or a scene with them, basically it progresses that character's story. So the more you choose a girl, the further their story will progress, and you'll get to learn more about that character. I mainly just kind of stuck with one girl throughout the entire game because, and this is sort of another aspect I didn't like. The more you choose a certain character, the more they're gonna level up. So I just pretty much chose the same classmate all the time, because our levels kept increasing, and it didn't really make sense to me. The further you go into the game, the dungeons get harder, So I wasn't going to choose a new classmate to take into a more difficult dungeon, and their levels would have been way too low. So I just kind of stuck with the same classmate the whole game. Um, Another thing I didn't like, the story was kind of boring. Even the stories with each girls were kind of boring. They were a little bit weird. They didn't really make a whole lot of sense. You could tell that this game wasn't really thought out a whole lot. Kind of the main thing, the main reason for this game, there's a lot of fan service. So if you're into those type of games, you'll probably really like that this game. I didn't really like it a whole lot. Another thing I didn't like, and this was a main thing for me, and this is definitely going to be a spoiler. So you have different classmates, and you kind of become friends with certain people. So you become friends with this one guy in your class. He's also a really good warrior, so you kind of have like this competitive relationship with him where each of you think you're the better warrior, so it's real competitive, but ultimately you're still friends with the guy. So his family is like a really rich family, and they own this huge corporation, and they're sort of the corporation that kind of backs you financially to go into these dust clouds and fight these monsters and everything. um, so anyway, what turns out to be the major villain and the main villain in the game is his brother, who's a character. His name is Enzaya, and this really comes out of nowhere. You're basically like you go to a dungeon, and your friend's in there, and pretty much his brother shows up, turns on everybody, kills uh, your friend's father, and kills your friend also. And it's just really kind of random. He's just like, oh yeah, by the way, it was me. And everyone's like, oh really? And it's just kind of like, oh, that really came out of nowhere. You could tell they were just like, just make this guy the villain, it really came out of nowhere. So that was something in the game that I really didn't like. um, Also, the ending is very anticlimactic. Basically, you beat the final boss, which kind of turns out to be your friend's brother, who basically figures out a way to harness all this negative energy that you think that you're clearing out, but really your friend's brother Enzaya is harvesting all this negative energy, and he basically puds it into himself, and he becomes this like really crazy monster. So you basically have to fight him at the end. You beat him at the end. You rid the world of all this negative energy. Um, and then after you do that, everyone's just kind of like, oh, okay, this negative energy's gone through the world, and it's just everybody just kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, it's gone, and they kind of act as if everything's normal, and like they don't really act like it's like this really big feat or anything. So that was kind of weird to me. Um, and one of the main things that I thought was really weird is you go through the story, you basically choose which classmate you want to take to the festival at the end, but you don't get to see the festival. I was kind of like looking forward to seeing, the festival and everything. They spend this entire game talking about this festival, and then you don't even get to see it because in other games like Trails of Cold Steel, there's like the festival towards the end of the game, and Trails of the Sky, there's the festival they talk about, and you get to see it and everything. Um, but in this game, they talk about the entire game, and then you don't get to see it. So I thought that was really weird. Um, so then I also just have a couple of random thoughts I want to kind of throw in. They didn't really fit into any of these other things I want to talk about. Um, One thing, now, when it comes to battles, you basically take yourself into the dungeon, whatever female classmate you want to take into the dungeon, and then you take the other groups of people that make up your party are what they call star children. Um, so basically, you get to create the star children. This was also kind of another annoying aspect of the game because you would create these star children, and they would just kind of come out at different levels. To me, I couldn't figure out the key to making them have high levels. So you would like create a character, one of these star children, but then their levels were capped. Like, you would create one of these children, and it would say, okay, this child can only go up to level like 20, 30, and once they hit that max level, that's it. Like, you can't do anything else to make them stronger. So you kind of had to keep creating these more and more star children to get higher levels, because the further you progress in the game and the stronger you become, the stronger your star children are going to be when you create them. So you had to keep creating new characters for your party, and I didn't like that. I like to, get my party members and then just have them for the game and then develop them and make them stronger. But I didn't like that you had to keep making new characters. So to me, that was kind of annoying. Um, and so one of the things that I thought was weird, and I honestly did not know about this aspect of the game until I was getting my butt kicked by Enzea at the end of the game, and I couldn't figure it out because I didn't really have any trouble with any of the other bosses. So when I got to the end of the game, I couldn't beat Enzea. So finally, I kind of like looked up some tips online, and somebody was talking about, when during the battles, when your star children are maxed out, you can basically combine them, and when you combine them, they become like this like incredibly strong like robot looking thing, and this robot thing kicked butt. Like, it was so powerful. So once I figured that out, and once I did that, the end battle was like a cinch. So then I'm just sitting here thinking, I'm like, wow, like none of the tutorials, at least that I remember, told you about this aspect of the game. Unless they did and I just missed it, but I doubt that I missed it, because usually I'm pretty vigilant during these tutorials. Sorry, I had a hard time getting that out. But yeah, like, I don't know. Like, I don't know if I missed it or just they didn't talk about it. But I didn't realize it till the very end battle. And then I'm thinking, like, wow, this game might have been a lot easier for other boss battles if I was doing that. But I didn't really have too much trouble up until that last battle, but once I figured out that you could combine your star children and they form this big robot thing, then that final battle was a cinch after that. So that I kind of thought that was a weird thing. I don't think they addressed it anywhere, so it's just kind of like, are you supposed to just figure this out on your own or know that you can do that? Um, so yeah, that was just sort of like a random thought I had about the game. But like I said, this is really a fan servicey type of game. So if you like those type of games, you'll probably enjoy this game. I didn't really like it. Like I said, the story's kind of weak. The battles are kind of, not the greatest battles. The dungeons, you could tell they really try to kind of copy off of Persona's formulas when it comes to the dungeons. So that's kind of something. And I enjoyed the Persona games, so I would think that I would like that aspect, but it's like the type of thing where you're just kind of like, wow, they're really trying to copy off of Persona. So even that's not really a great aspect to the game. So yeah, like I said, if you enjoy fan service games, you'll probably like this. If not, it's not a very strong JRPG. It was on my least favorites list. But yeah, so this has been my impressions of Conception 2. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. Me and my brother do a podcast. We haven't done one in a while. Maybe we'll come back to it at some point. I do impressions videos, mainly of JRPGs. I do collection videos. So if you enjoy the content, please give me a like, please subscribe, and I'll see you next time.